I'm Hillary Hendershot, your host, and this is Profit Boss Radio, episode 119. Profit Boss Radio is your weekly wealth mastermind. Profit Boss is also a community and a movement for women who are ready to take control of their money, break the glass ceiling, and give ourselves permission to finally have enough. Want the secrets of wealth to be yours? This is the place. I'm Hillary Hendershot. I'm a certified financial planner running a leading advisory firm for women, and I'm sharing with you real stories from real life and real women who are making it happen. Forget Wall Street. Let's do this, ladies. Well, hi there, Profit Boss. We have another listener story today. Jenna reached out to me last season. Seems like a year, definitely earlier in 2018. And she really wanted to tell her story. She's a Profit Boss listener, and she was really excited to talk about this thing that she's been through. And she's really transformed her life. And once she starts talking, you're going to see right away why she wanted to tell that story. And I'm totally heartened and honored by the fact that we have listeners like that reaching out. So if you've got a story and it needs to be told, we'd love to tell it on Profit Boss Radio. Just email us at media@hillaryhendershot.com. Wanted to take a quick second before we get right into the interview and talk about which of the 7 steps to wealth are covered in Jenna's story. Which of the 7 steps is she really embodying? And the first step is decide. And I think it's clear in Jenna's story that she put up with a lot for time, but she was clear that if things kept going the way that they were going, she was not going to stick around. And, unfortunately, her former husband, didn't turn things around. He did not pull his head up out of the sand or some other bodily orifice, if you know what I'm talking about. And Jenna finally decided, I've had enough. And that really is a key part of the 7 steps to wealth. You have to decide. The second step that Jenna embodies is speak. You can hear her empowered language about money. She is intentional about paying off debt and being responsible for really not crimes, but sins that were committed and not by her. She ended up paying off a lot of her husband's debt. And she was very committed that get off the books. And she's very clearly in communication about it and speaking what she's willing and not willing to do. The third is plan. Again, you can hear her grappling with the numbers, thinking about, if I pay this off, I won't be able to have that. There's one part in which she says, I paid off this debt. I used my whole paycheck to pay off a bunch of debt, and I didn't have any money for 2 weeks, but I didn't care. Well, that's planning. That's recognizing and internalizing trade-offs. And the fourth step of the 7 steps to wealth that I really hear Jenna embodying is ask. And you can hear, sometimes it doesn't sound like, may I please have this? Sometimes asking is, no, this is how it's going to go for me, which is saying, hey, I want to play this game this way, but I'm only willing to play it if you're willing to go along with how things need to go for me to be happy. And that's a form of request. I mean, it sounds like a demand, but whatever. I'm cool with her demand that her money life work for her. And you can hear that it really is turning out. All right. So after the interview, please stay tuned for some more fun content. But for now, here's Jenna. Hi, Jenna. Welcome to Profit Boss Radio.
Hi, Hillary. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited to tell your story. So start with us right there in the middle, right at that point of discovery. You shared with me that you were pregnant and applying for a mortgage to get a bigger home, and the response that you got was a big surprise to you. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so we had bought a home, and we were looking to increase the size because we were having another child. And one day, I remember it very distinctly, I got a phone call from a creditor, a collection agency, and my husband at the time, his car was in my name, and it was a work car, a business car. And that was what they were calling for collections for. And I was shocked because I didn't know that he wasn't paying his car payment. And this was his business vehicle. So it was double shock that he would allow, such a transgression to occur with his career. And I immediately got upset, and he told me, I distinctly remember he told me that it's not that big of a deal, that it won't affect us trying to get a house because uh, the mortgage company doesn't look at your auto loan and if it's been paid up to date. And I looked at him and I just thought, are you serious? That you don't really think that. And he told me I didn't know what I was talking about. So when I responded that that's crazy, that of course they look at your auto loans when you're getting a mortgage, he told me I didn't know what I was talking about. So we consequently did not qualify for a mortgage that we wanted to qualify for. And we were faced with my credit score being a lot lower than I even knew. At that point, I had not really known anything about credit. My credit was good up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ultimately decided we sold our house that we were currently living in, and then we moved in with his parents. And we had to do that in order to save some money and then be able to get a house that we wanted to live in. So we lived with his parents for about 6 months while I was pregnant and trying to save as much money as we could. I was doing as much as I could to learn about finances through just reading books really and kind of watching CNN, but I still wasn't quite sure exactly what to do.
Were you discovering more, as you put it, transgressions? Is this the point at which sort of the hornet's nest opened?
Yeah, so I was trying to keep track of our spending since I was reading a book, about trying to keep track of it and the different programs that you can use on a computer. And so the business that my husband was in he dealt mostly in cash. So I didn't know where his money was going. The other problem was that we had one account. We had a joint account. It was a checking account. So the money that he made from his business went directly into that checking account, which is also where the money I made from being a teacher went. And I didn't know anything about him owning a business and what a 1099 meant and what he needed to do on his end to make sure that he was paying out the vendors that he needed to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what was happening was the cash that was going in, I don't know if it was actually going in, and if it was going into the account, I don't know if he was using that to pay his bills. When his bills needed to be paid, my money was being used for that because it was all mixed together and there was no organization. So I still was trying to learn how to do that. And he kept telling me I didn't know what I was talking about and to let him handle it, that he'll deal with it. And so that was the lie that I was telling myself, was that I didn't know what I was talking about, and well, he must know and he'll take care of it. And I wanted to believe that he would take care of it. It was very stressful for me. It was something I didn't want to deal with. I wanted to trust him and I wanted to believe he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, I would like for someone to take care of a lot of aspects of my life if I was sure that they were going to do it right. It's but this whole thing, and I can get it. You weren't taking part in it. You didn't really want to learn it. I mean, who wants to learn a field, a technical aspect of life if they don't have to? But here he's not handling his end of the bargain.
Right. And that was the hard part as a wife, was the stepping on his toes of, do I research exactly what he should be doing and then put it
Almost
into
feels
motion.
like it's going behind his back.
Exactly. And then, the butting of heads that would come from that, he just didn't want to listen to me, wanted to believe that I didn't know what I was talking about. And I wanted to believe that about myself, I suppose. So I didn't understand what he was doing really was not the right thing, just because I was so uneducated about any sort of finances, let alone business finances. And when you're dealing with a pretty much a cash trade what your responsibilities are. In addition to that, he's a drinker, so he was spending a lot of cash on alcohol and food, eating out, and also gambling. He was a big gambler playing cards with his friends. So there was always cash around. So I kind of thought we had money because there was cash, but the mistake about that is that I wasn't paying attention at all to where the cash was going. It wasn't separated in an account. And what I should have done in hindsight was really sit down with him and talk to him about how a business is run so that I could understand it and we could be on the same page.
So what were some of the other symptoms of the financial mess that you were in? Did you have enough to pay your bills? How did things unravel?
Kind of down the line a little bit, when we decided to finally go get a house, we had qualified for a mortgage. We needed a co-signer. And so my dad agreed to co-sign on the loan. And my dad and my husband's parents gave us some cash so that we could put down more money on the house. And I knew in the back of my mind, and from all the research I had done, that co-signing on a loan was just a big, huge mistake. Even though it's your parent and they want to do what's right for you, it really is not something that should be mixed together. So we ended up buying a house that we could afford on paper, but when it came down to all of the little spending and the mismanagement of the business, we really struggled to pay our mortgage. And we also had daycare expenses on top of that. So daycare expenses, are upwards of $1,500 a month, which is practically what we were paying for our mortgage. So those things added up, and we ended up, missing a few months here and there of the mortgage payment, and it ended up affecting my dad's credit score and my credit score because we were the two on the loan.
Oh, it was your father and you on the loan.
Yeah, it was me and my father on the loan. My husband was not on the loan.
Oh, this is such a quintessential tale. I mean, here he verbally, you forgive me for using dramatic language, but he's like verbally criticizing and abusing you for trying to handle things that he's not handling. And then he foists his financial responsibilities, not just on his wife, but his father-in-law.
Yeah, so that was a huge, huge contention with the two of us. I was very resentful that he continued his ways. He did not make any effort to have a set financial system with the business. And when we were defaulting on the loan, we weren't paying the loan. I was like, this is not just us. This is not just me. This is my dad.
Right.
And so the guilt that I had was just terrible. And my dad actually ended up having to loan us cash to be able to pay the mortgage a couple of times. And I was so humiliated and embarrassed. And my husband kept saying, well, everyone's in this situation. We're not the only ones. The economy is terrible right now. And, that just wasn't a good enough answer for me. I didn't care what everyone else was going through. I didn't want us to be going through it. And he was continuing with gambling and, the spending of always having cash on hand. And I didn't really know where it was coming from. So I don't think that he had any secret credit cards or anything like that. But what was happening was this financial infidelity of him telling me he was taking care of the bills and them not getting taken care of.
Did you need to acknowledge that it was financial infidelity at a certain point just so that you could say, I actually am a victim here? He's not keeping up his end of the bargain?
I'd started to go to therapy because I really was about 2 years after we moved out of his parents' house and into our new home. I needed to find out if I was really wrong. And so I decided to go to therapy because in my heart, I knew that there was just something fundamentally wrong with our marriage. And I was afraid we're going to end up getting divorced. So at the therapist's office, she introduced that terminology to me because I had told her about our financial difficulties. And when she told me that, I thought, oh, wow, that's a thing. I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's a thing.
It is a thing. But I was so, I guess, brainwashed or so emotionally just raw and worn down to a nub that I still continued to stay with him. And it wasn't until I finally had enough and filed for divorce.
What was the final straw?
I don't know if it It
Or
was
maybe it
it was
wasn't dramatic like that.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, it was over about 5 years where I finally, things hadn't improved. And I remember when we were living at his parents' house, back when we couldn't move because we didn't have the credit scores to move, I sat with him and I said, if things don't change, I can't stay with you. I can't live this life. We're just in upheaval all the time. Knowing that your mortgage is not paid and hasn't been paid for 2 months or 3 months, and also walking into daycare to pick up my daughter, knowing that the bill wasn't paid was probably the worst feeling that I've ever felt in my life. And it's small compared to, people who are sick or, have been through real trauma. But I couldn't imagine living my whole life like that. And I saw no end in sight. And I think one of the final straws was before I had filed for divorce, a sheriff came to the house and I didn't speak with the sheriff. My husband spoke with the sheriff and he came back in the house and he said, everything's taken care of. Everything's fine. Then maybe 6 months later, 3 months later, I can't quite recall, the car company called and was going to recall or repo his car. Yes. And he was on vacation actually with his friends. And I was frantic that someone was going to come pulling up with a truck to come get his car. And he said, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. And so I said, that's it. I can't live like this anymore.
Because it's just unfulfilled promises after unfulfilled promises.
Yeah.
And it's not just that he's making promises to show to dinner on time. It's like the car's gone. The mortgage payment is late. My dad's FICO score is tanked.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did file for divorce, and then even after that, a sheriff came to the house, and this was the absolute last thing that happened. A sheriff came to the house, and he said, "Jenna, I've been here before. I've met your dogs.
What?
I've been in your house before." And I said, "What? I have no idea. This is the first I'm hearing of any of this." And he said, "No, I've spoken to your husband and he's made deals with me and it has not followed through." So I said, okay, this stops here. And I took my last paycheck or the next paycheck, all of it, and I paid that bill off. It was about a $2,000 bill. I paid that bill off, had no money for the next 2 weeks. That was fine with me because I knew that was paid and that I would never have the experience of a sheriff coming into my house, taking inventory of my furniture so that they could take my furniture and sell it off. I didn't think that was a thing either, but apparently that's a thing too.
How did the sheriff's office get involved in a private debt? Who were they acting on behalf of?
That debt was the homeowners association for our house.
Oh, okay.
So I guess they called the sheriff or a collection agency called the sheriff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously things got pretty bad. I don't know how you were able to even trust. It just seems like trust was completely broken. And not only that, but as his financial partner, and marriage is a financial partnership, whether you acknowledge it or not, he's taking you down with him.
Yes.
So obviously we'd love for your story and stories like it to enlighten women and empower them to notice the small signs walking down the path so that it never has to get that big. So take us way back to when you met this man, or maybe seeds that were planted during your childhood. Why do you think you got yourself in that mess?
So, well, I think that based on listening to your podcast and learning about money and mindsets and things that are given to you as a child, my parents were divorced, and they were divorced when I was 3. My father made a lot more money than my mother. And there was always that idea that, well, your dad will pay for it, or your dad has to pay for it. He is financially responsible, so he'll have to pay for it. So I think I grew up with that there will always be enough money mindset, plus the someone else will take care of it kind of idea.
It just comes from somewhere else.
Yeah. And I then, as the years went on, maybe late middle school, I really was bad at math. I did not like math. And so I thought, well, I'm bad at math. Then in college, I distinctly remember, and I don't know if you went to college around the time when I did, but there was tables of credit card companies where they would give you a t-shirt or a water bottle if you signed up for their credit card, in the quad and campus.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Yes.
The Southwest Airlines credit card did me in.
Yeah. I remember thinking, wait, I can buy things and I don't need money? Uh, that's distinctly what I remember thinking in college. So that immediately started my credit card debt. And then I didn't know because my parents didn't know I had a credit card. They didn't know how to show me how to deal with it. And I had a credit card statement on my dresser, and my roommate said to me, "Your credit card's late." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Well, okay. I just thought that was like, a suggested date that it needed to be in by. I didn't realize that then they added late fees and then they add, your interest rate. I didn't know what any of that meant. And she
Right.
had to tell me what that meant. And then I thought, oh, shoot, I better, actually pay attention to these bills that are coming in. So then I must have been paying my credit cards well because after I got my first job, I went and bought a car when I was 23. And the sales guy said to me, "Wow, your credit score is really good." And I was like, "Awesome. What's a credit score? I don't, what's that mean?" So I just had no clue. I really didn't. And then until I married my husband, I thought my credit score was good. I had bought a small condo and I was paying it on time and all of that was really good until I married him. And then I thought, oh, well, he's supposed to take care of all of this. He's the guy. He's like my dad who takes care of all of it. We got a joint account and we at first I was paying certain bills, but then after that, I just kind of let him take over and I didn't really want to think about it. And that's, I think, where it all started is the I don't really want to think about it attitude that I had.
So, when you met this man that became your future husband, how did the financial aspect of your relationship evolve? Did you talk about money? Was it in the background? Did he take care of you? Did he pay for dates? I know you were earning money at the time. So, how did you work that out?
Yes, I guess he did pay for most of the things that we did. He always had cash on hand. He was the type of person that always had cash. He had been working at a gym when we met, and so we were young. We weren't really spending a whole lot of money just kind of to go out. And I thought that he had it all taken care of. His parents seemed financially stable and, pretty well off. They had lots of acreage in the town that we lived in, and he seemed to have everything put together. When he started his first business with his dad, everything was fine. Everything was taken care of. But I suspect that his dad was doing all of the finances. He ended up getting out of that business and starting another business of his own. And that's kind of where things started to fall apart, is when he was responsible for it. And I don't want to blame it all on him, because the message that I do want to get out is that I'm to blame for not paying attention and for wanting him to take all of the responsibility and all of the heat. So when he started his business, I don't think he either knew or was too lazy to, or wasn't aware of the ways in which you need to keep track of your finances.
Mm-hmm.
There was never any discussion of, well, I need to put such and such a pay. Every time I get paid, I need to put such and such a percentage aside for taxes, or I need to put such and such a dollar amount aside for my vendors. None of that was ever discussed.
So he was kind
So,
of living check to check, or cash inflow to cash
yes,
inflow,
yes.
paying
So
for
if
things
cash,
with cash, trying not to pay the vendors, trying not to pay the IRS.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So if cash came in often, or let me just say it this way, if a bill came in often, whatever money we had on hand went out to that bill. So even if he had a bill from a vendor come in, the money would come out of our joint checking account, which was my money too. And I didn't like that. And I said, that doesn't seem right to me. I don't think that should be that way. And he would say, oh, well, it all goes in the same place anyway, or it all comes to the same place. And you don't really know what you're talking about because you're not in business. And I thought, okay, well, maybe he's right. I want to trust him. I really do want to trust him. And that's where I made the mistake of not doing the research because I'm smart enough and I could have figured it out. I just didn't want to.
Right. And in many ways, he sort of stepped into the seat that was vacated by your father, right?
Yes.
Because dad was responsible for making it happen, and now it's your husband. And you wanted to delegate.
Yes.
You wanted to not worry about money, to not think about it.
Yes.
Okay. Have you played back the way things went and thought about the various places that you would take different actions? Have you spent much time doing that?
I haven't spent much time doing that, but I think where I would take different actions is just maybe being more of a part of the business and really understanding the training that he did get for the business and specifically the financial training
Mm-hmm.
and understand more about the way it worked with because he worked with vendors and he had to pay them in order to get the jobs done and and especially the taxes. I didn't know anything about a 1099 and I didn't know how that worked and I would have maybe sat down with him and discussed it, but that wasn't the kind of relationship that we had. He very much wanted to be in control of it, either because he was hiding or because he was the man and that was his ego speaking. Or, at this point, I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if, even to this day, I don't know if he's made any of those changes. I suspect he hasn't because sometimes there are still bills that come to the house or still,
Really?
certified letters that come. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if he's taking care of them, but it's not my issue. And I tell a sheriff has come again and thank God it wasn't for me. And I said, he doesn't live here anymore. And so, and
Wow.
it's mostly taxes. So
It
that's
must
very
feel
easy.
great to open your door and see a sheriff standing there and be able to say, this is not my issue. He doesn't live here. We're not in a partnership anymore. I have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's still very tense between the two of us because I did make big changes and 180-degree changes and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that he has, and I think he's very resentful about that.
Mm-hmm. So, what's it like to be the victim of financial infidelity? Do you recall your experience coming up towards, the deciding moment when you finally filed for divorce? What was that like for you?
I felt embarrassed and stupid.
Mm.
And I feel that I don't want to blame it all on him because I am definitely to be held responsible for burying my head in the sand
Mm-hmm.
and not, and I'm ashamed that I thought so little of myself that I thought I didn't need to be on top of it, that
Mm-hmm.
I would just let him take care of it. And I believed him when he told me I didn't know what I was talking about. So I
Mm.
was embarrassed and ashamed, but I think that I got over that as soon as I started making headway with getting it better and with, improving my credit score and with getting out of debt.
And I know that you're now in a new successful romantic partnership. How did you
Yes.
navigate the financial aspect of getting together with someone new?
So, well, the first year, um, I am in a relationship with a woman now, and she has moved in with me. And the first year that she moved in with me, we've been together almost 4 years now. And the first year I said, I really appreciate the offers that you're making with finances, but I want to do all of this myself. I had to prove to myself that I could do this and that I could afford this house because the story from my ex-husband was, well, we can't afford this house. This house is too expensive for us. But I knew that I could afford it. So for a whole year, I decided that I wasn't going to let her pay any of the bills, that I was going to do it all myself. I paid the mortgage, all of the utilities, my car, all of it. And I did it. I was able to do it by myself. Took a lot of discipline. It took a lot of, Excel spreadsheets, but I was able to do it. And so the reward at the end of that was she took me to Hawaii with the money that she saved. Um,
Oh,
for not paying bills. So she didn't just live for free for a year. She took me on a great vacation. So
nice.
it was very rewarding. Yeah.
That's such a perfect example of paying it forward. Here, you wanted to internalize the lessons of self-sufficiency, and she didn't take that opportunity to sort of penny pinch and keep it for herself. And then you get to go on this sort of triumphant vacation that's already paid for in cash
Yes. Yes.
to Hawaii,
Yes.
to gorgeous, gorgeous Hawaii. That's awesome. And so, you shared with me that you have had not just a financial transformation, but really a transformation in the way you look at life. So would you talk a little bit about your new plans and expectations for your future? What have you got on the horizon?
Sure. So one of the things that really changed me, and one of the things that I allowed myself to spend money on was meditation. And I learned how to do transcendental meditation. And when I learned how to do that, I was really able to become very clear about what I was here on this earth for. And I took the plunge and I took a yoga teacher training, which I had always wanted to do, but I never had enough money to do. And that has come back to me. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's completely changed my life. Not only now because I teach yoga 2 days a week, I'm allowed to practice at the studio for free. So free yoga is a yogi's dream come true,
Mm-hmm.
and to make a little extra money on the side. And I've decided also through, just being very present in my life that my current situation of my teaching job, I'm a public school teacher, it is not fulfilling and it is very toxic actually to my well-being. And I've decided that I'm going to retire hopefully within the next year or two and open a yoga studio and create a community where all walks of life can come and practice yoga and have a safe, loving environment in which to spend extra time, because it's really changed my life. And I think that that's important to allow others to do that as well. So really the whole trajectory of my life has changed in that, the career that was safe, that was financially safe. I have a pension, I have benefits. That's just because it's financially safe doesn't necessarily mean it's the best for me emotionally.
Or fulfilling.
Exactly, or fulfilling. So I've looked to, really completely change the second half of my life.
Yeah, you said to me, I found this new person that I want to be. I'm not even that woman anymore.
No, I'm not. I'm not. It definitely is a new story, a new chapter, and being through that financial infidelity and the upheaval and that just horrible sinking feeling every morning, waking up knowing that I owed people money and that I could lose my house, was enough to, I mean, that was just such an awful feeling. And I know that there's people out there that are feeling that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that it would ever change. I thought it would always be this way, but now that it has changed and I was able to figure things out and find resources and find help, and not just, my parents helping me, it was resources that are out there for everybody. That was such a breath of fresh air. And I just feel like this is the universe telling me I have to do other things in my life.
And just to give people a timeline, I'm just kind of looking at my notes about you, just so people who are listening, someone might find themselves in the same situation as you. You did share with me, you found out or began to discover the problems when you were pregnant with your daughter. You waited 5 years to separate. So your daughter was 5 at the point of separation, and she's 9 now.
Yes.
And, it just seems like you've gotten to a point where you've been able to put that behind you. You experience being a brand new person. Like life in this area is healed for you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely healed.
And what were some of the resources? And of course, I'm especially interested in the resources from Profit Boss Radio that really motivated you and helped you along your way.
So the first thing I did was call my mortgage company. This was back in, it must have been about 5 years ago now. I called my mortgage company and I was able to restructure my loan. And the biggest takeaway from that was that if you just call them and if you are willing to work with them and you explain your situation to them and tell them that you're going to take responsibility for this, they will work with you. And I was lucky enough that I was able to restructure my loan so that I could afford it on my own. I also got involved in a credit repair company, and that was a really big help, paid off all the credit cards that we had, with the high interest rates like Home Depot, which was like at 21%. And I got rid of all of my credit cards after that. I don't use credit now. I pay if I don't have the money for it in my bank, I don't buy it. I've actually started getting tax returns, which has been, I've never in my life gotten, well, I don't want to say in my life, but since I had been married, because my husband owned his own business, I never got a tax return because.
You mean refund?
Yeah, that's what I meant. A refund, sorry. I never got a tax refund because of his 1099 and we filed jointly. So for the first time in my life, I'm able to get a refund and save it and or put it towards something that I need, like a new dishwasher or new windows, something that I never would have been able to afford just without that. So I'm able to kind of squirrel away some money from that. And learning about, what it takes to build wealth and not spending any more than I make and being very diligent about a budget and keeping track of everything that I spend, that planning and every dollar has a job, like that is directly from you. And that's always how I felt, that my money should be going into like little cubbies, and this cubby is for back to school shopping and this cubby is for
your next car or
exactly
a dress for the wedding or
right. And that all made so much sense to me that I thought, oh, okay, that's what I needed. I knew I felt that's exactly what my husband and I were not doing, that everything was just piling into this bucket and it was all being mixed together. And I just hated that feeling. So knowing that I can separate my bank accounts and have a specific bank account for holiday spending and a specific bank account for this. And that was so eye-opening for me. So thank you for kind of bringing that out in me too.
Yeah.
And just talking about money too. I was always embarrassed to talk about money, even with my friends, and, they're shopping and you want to come shopping with me. And I said, well, I'll come with you, but I'm not going to spend any money because it's not really this week's agenda. That would have embarrassed me before. And so now just learning to speak about it, and they're like, and half the time they kind of say, maybe I shouldn't spend any money either.
Yeah. I bet they're envious of you having the willpower.
Right. So, and then working on bringing more money in. I work a full-time job, but I do a little extra teaching on the side with yoga, and it doesn't bring in a whole lot of money, but it is a little bit extra where I know that, if I want to take my kids out for Chinese on a Friday night, I can do that because I've worked a little bit harder in order to do that. So I also, I've read books, I've listened to other podcasts, I've listened to people on CNN and the Today Show. They have really good financial advisors. So getting information from all different places, seeing what fits best with you and your lifestyle, and just being patient. It takes a long time, especially getting into a credit recovery program. That took a few years. But everything was consolidated, and if you're honest with them, talk to them, and you're diligent about the payments, they work with you. Those were the steps that I took, and here, fast forward, I'm out of it and so much more relieved, and I sleep better at night too.
Great. And in what you said, and we didn't even prepare this or talk about it, but I'm hearing many of the 7 Steps to Wealth. And if you're listening and you haven't heard the 7 Steps to Wealth episode, go back and check out episode 77. But I hear the third step, which is plan, create a roadmap to success. The fourth step, which is ask. So you're negotiating with your mortgage company and you're letting people know where you're at and what's possible so that they can reset their expectations and work with you. Step 5 is earn, and you're trying to earn more money. And step 7 is invest. Are you investing?
I wish I could say I was.
Is that next on the agenda?
Absolutely. I'm just at this point just starting to build, and that is my goal. My goal is to be able to invest, and it may not even be in the next 5 years, but it's the top of the list. Like, this is what we're going to do. So one day, yes, I would love to invest.
Perfect. Jenna, thank you so much for joining us on Profit Boss Radio. Thank you for reaching out, for all the time that you've spent, and for dedicating today for our interview. You've just been absolutely wonderful, and I know your story is going to empower many women. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I hope you enjoyed hearing Jenna's story. I really enjoyed being part of telling it. Wanted to thank Jenna once again for coming on Profit Boss Radio. Jenna, you are the best. Some other people who are the best this week are our new Ignite clients. Thank you to Pri and Danielle and Kimberly. Technically, Pri isn't really a new client. She's been with us for a couple months, but she's so cool that she gets to get mentioned, especially. Thanks, Pri. We love you. Also, new financial planning clients, Kelly and Brian. Love to you all. Okay, do you have an Ask Hillary question? Do you have a question? Do you have a financial cue? We want to hear from you. And I want to hear your voice on Profit Boss Radio. So here's your opportunity. Just grab your mobile device and record yourself asking a question. Record your voice, say your first name and your city, and then ask away. And then email that voice message to media@hillaryhendershot.com. Stay tuned in just a couple weeks to hear yourself on the podcast. If you love Profit Boss Radio, please do subscribe in your podcast player, share the show with a friend, but please, pretty please, go to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. Just clicking 5 stars is cool, you guys. Thank you so much. But if you put some words, it really helps. Write some things that you like about the show. Just tell me what you'd like and tell me what you'd like to hear more of. Have a great week. Today's episode of Profit Boss Radio was brought to you by Ignite Investing. If it's time to release all that financial anxiety and make sure you're on the right path to financial success by hiring a comprehensive wealth management team, and you have between $25,000 and $499,000 to invest, go to igniteinvesting.com now and click Get Started today. For today's show notes, visit hillaryhendershot.com. And if you love Profit Boss Radio, please share the show with your friends and, of course, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Until next time, I wish you much prosperity.